हाय फ्रेंड्स, जब हम इंडियन इकोनॉमी के बारे में डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, जो पार्ट 1 जो है इंट्रोडक्शन जो है इन बुक्स हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं तो रमेश सिंह का। तो इंट्रोडक्शन हमने डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, इसका पार्ट 1 भी हमने बना लिया है, ठीक है। तो ये सब हमने डिस्कस कर दिया है, ठीक है। तो इसके बाद हमने ये सब कंप्लीट कर लिया प्रीवियस वीडियो में। तो आप देख सकते हैं, आपका बुक्स खुल के देख सकते हैं, ठीक है। ये सब हमने कंप्लीट कर लिया, इतना तक कंप्लीट किया, ओके। इसके बाद हम देखेंगे ये चैप्टर, ओके। इतना तक कंप्लीट कर लिया। द रियल आंसर सीम्स टू गोइंग फॉर नाइदर ए मार्केट फॉर नॉर द स्टेट्स बट ए जुडिशियस मिक्स और बोथ at the state market mix depends upon the socio-economic and political condition of the economy. There can never be a mechanical prototype of the mixed economy which could be applied upon every economy universally. If a country needs to explore its own mixture of market and state, again, the same state might need to redefine the composition of the market mix in the coming times according to its changes socio-economic political scenario. The process of economic reforms in India started in 1991. In the economic movement, it was in fact the search for a new state market mix. While India has been a mixed economy since independence, after independence, India opted for a mixed economy when the state market dilemma was at its peak globally. In the process of the organizing the economy, some basic and important infrastructure economy responsibilities. The prevailing state market mix was redefined, and a new form of mixed economy began to be prescribed. As the socio-economic conditions have changed, as the state market economics also changed, the redefined mixed economy for India has had declared favor the market economy. Many economic roles which were under complete. Many economic roles which were under complete. Government monopolies were now opened for participation by the private sector. Examples are many telecommunication, power roads, oil, and natural gas, etc. Are at the same time, responsibilities. At the same time, responsibility which will till date being shouldered by the state alone, and which would be taken up by the state only, are given extra emphasis. In this category comes the whole social sector: education, healthcare, drinking water, sanitation, nutrition, social security. The economic system of India was a mixed economy in the pre-1991 years, as it is in the post-1991 years, where the composition of the state market mix has gone for a change. In future, the socio-economic and political factors will be changing. In the future, the political, economic, and political factors will be changed, and it will be redefining its market mixed economy. Accordingly, the emergence of an evolution of the mixed economy, which was thus able to settle for the long-standing debate as to what was the best way to organize an economy, starting in 1776 with the wealth of nations. Okay. Starting 1776, wealth of nation above Adam Smith, it continued till we had the World Development Report 1999, West of World Bank. The dilemma continued for almost two and a quarter centuries. Okay, 1776 to 2000. Today, World Trade Organization has taken over the world economy, the brand of the mixed economy. It advocates it made more inclined. It advocates more in today, once the World Trade Organization has taken over the world economy, the brand of the mixed economy, it advocates is more inclined towards the free market economy. However, it does not propagate to make the state an economic non-entity. That is, it leaves scope for state intervention. It requires areas if needed. Roles of the states in an economy. The dilemma of searching the ideal way of organizing an economy as it role of the state evolved. Was able also going to solve another riddle. The riddle was the role of the state in an economy. If we look well back in the economic history of the world, we see three possible roles of the state and the government in an economy. It as a regular of the economic system where the state takes important economic decisions and announces the required kind of economic policies. Hmm. Take the sole responsibility to get them implemented and controlling and punishing those who don't obligate to those economic decisions. As a producer and a supplier to provide goods and services. This include all these goods and services which constitute the part of the market and which will be distributed among the needy according to the principles of market mechanism. Here the states earn profit as private enterprise, as a producer and or suppliers the public goods and social goods. These include goods and services which look essential from the perspective of social justice and well-being for the people. Education, healthcare, health sanitation, drinking water, nutrition, caring for the differently abled and old, etc. come under this category. These goods, which are generally distributed free of cost at times, might reach the beneficiaries of subsidized prices. The loss of incurred by the state of this way is paid out of the public exchequer, which means that the whole economy pays for the cause of the few people. Cause of a few people at different as the different economics select different roles of the state according different roles of state according to their social political ideologies. The world had different ways of organizing the social economy and had resulted in the establishment of different economic systems in the past. On the issue of regulating the economy, there has been no database, no debate, as we see all economic system being regulated by the state only. But the selection of the other two functions of the state in an economy made the real difference. Okay, that the economy which selected both the roles. Okay, 2 and 3 for the state under the monopoly. We called them the state of economics. The category of the economy had two variants of in the socialist economy. At least the labor was not owned and exploited by the state, unlike the other. The communist economy, where labor used to be under complete state control. These economics had almost no market. Okay, the category of the economy had two varieties of in the socialist economy. At least the labor, which labor was not owned by the exploited in the state, unlike the other. Okay, the communist economy where labor used to be under complete or state control. These economies had almost no market. The economic system which left both the roles the sole or responsibility of the private sector was called capitalistic economic system. Here the state here here the state almost no economic role, but played a passive role in the at the regulator. Mixed economics had at least kept one economic role fixed for the first state, that is supplying. Okay, mixed had at least kept one economic role fixed for the state supply public goods and up to the needy people. In some of the mixed economies, the state went to take some of the roles of supplying, and in supplying the private goods, even by carrying a heavy burden of subsidies. The World Bank document, the World Development Report 1999, was judgment on the possible and suitable role. Suitable role of the state in the economy, which suggested a timely suppling of state's role in the economy. As for the socio-economic and political needs of the economy, we may understand the most question that is questions for whom the political problems of mankind is to combine three things: economic efficiency, social justice, and individual liberty. In the process of realizing the above mentioned objective, an economy an economy cannot go for either for allowing only state's role in the economy or only the market's role in the economy. These challenges could only be faced properly once the state and the market both gives a balanced role in an economy. The balance to be defined by the present conditions of the direction of nature. Direction of nature. Okay, the challenges could only face properly once the state market are given the role of a balance in the economy. The balance will be defined in the present condition and the different direction of the future goal of economy. Striking the right balance between the role of the state and the market in the economics most to be known as the process of economy and reforms in the post-WTO period. If we catalyze the need of the economy, Indian economy, we see some compulsory roles of the state in it. If the regulation and control of the economy is left, if the regulation and control of an economy is left to private individuals or goods, rich firms, they will be using the regulatory powers to maximize their profits and returns at the cost of the others. That is why this rules must rest with the states. It looks more logical in the democratic political setup, where the interest of the largest number of the being represented by the in the regulatory provisions. The responsibility of producing the responsibility of producing and distributing private goods. Its goods to the people could be well handled by the private sector as this is a profit-fetching area. The state should not burden itself with this responsibility as this could be well taken up by the private sector. But in the absence of the proper regions of the private sector in an economy, many countries in the world give this responsibility also to the state. India being India being one among them. But as the private sector become capable, in some countries their responsibility was given up by the state in favor of the private sector, and better development has been possible in those economies. In the sense, India delayed this process, while Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and South Korea allowed entry of the private sector much earlier. A responsibility of producing and supplying the social public goods to the needy cannot be left to the private sector, as this is a loss-making exercise. It means the state will have to take the sole responsibility, or many need to expand its role in such area, as we see it in the post-reform period India. As the private sector become capable of playing the project proper role in producing and supplying the private goods, state saves its important human and economic resources, which is transferred to take care of the production and distribution of public goods. Recently, World Bank studied the East Asian Miracle 1993. 1990 recognized the above given shift of one kind of mixed economy to other kind of mixed economy. In the cases of the Malaysian, Thai, South Korean economics taking place since the mid 1960s, experts believe that this shift could not take place in time in India, and once sorry, and once it started 1991 to 1992, it was too late, and this choice was not voluntary but obligatory. The East Asian country economics had gone for the same kind of reform process, but by their choices. Washington Consensus. The term Washington consensus was coined by the United States economist John Williamson. Okay. 1989. Okay, under the which he had suggested a state policy reform, which most of the official in Washington, International Monetary Fund, and World Bank thought would be good for the crisis-driven Latin American countries of the time. The policy reforms includes 10 propositions: fiscal discipline, the reduction of public expenditure, priorities towards failed suffering, both the high economic returns and the potential to improve income distribution, such as primary health care, primary education and infrastructure. The tax reforms to lower marginal rates and broaden the tax base, interest rate liberalization, a competitive exchange rate, trade liberalization of FDI, inflows, privatization, deregulation in the sense of abolishing barriers to entry and exist secure property rights. However, in coming times, in the term become synonymous to neoliberalism in Latin America, market fundamentalism, as George Soros told in 1998, and even globalization across the world. It had often been used to describe an extreme and dogmatic commitment. Okay, the coming of the becoming in the term becomes synonymous to neoliberalism, Latin American market fundamentalism, George Soros told in 1998, and even globalization across the world. It has even been used to describe an extreme and dogmatic commitment to the belief that market can handle everything. But the reality has been different. The set of policies was already being recommended by the IMF and the World Bank together with the US United States Treasury, especially during the period of the 80s and early 90s. This prescription was originally intended to address the real problems occurring there in Latin America at the time, and their address and their use later to handle a wide array of other sanctions and had been criticized even by original proponents of the policies. The name of the Washington Consensus has often been mentioned as being somewhat unfortunate, especially by the curator Williamson, who says that audiences of the world over seem to believe that this signifies a set of new liberal policies that have been imposed or on hapless countries by the Washington US-based international financial institution and have led them to crisis and misery. These are people who cannot utter the term without forming the mouth. Okay, mouth. Okay. Mm, Basically, mm, basically, World Bank study the first East Asian miracle, 1993. Oh, sorry, it is not. But the reality of the set of policies was already being recommendation by the IMF and the World Bank together with the US Treasury, especially during the period of the 80s, 80s and early 90s. The prescription was originally intended intended to address the real problems occurring in Latin America at the time, and their huge later to handle a wide array of other sanction legislation has been criticized even by the original proponents of the policies. The name of the Washington Consensus has often been mentioned as being somewhat unfortunate, especially by its creator. Well, Williamson says that what seem to believe that this signifies new liberal policies imposed by the helpless countries. Countries shouldn't have led crisis misery. इन्होंने डिस्कस किया है. Okay, so liberalization, privatization, liberalization, in this cutting down the role of the state in the economy, more so in the nations which got developmental funding from the World Bank or went to the IMF in times of the balance of payment crisis, as the case of India, which commenced its reforms forces in 1991 under the conditions of the IMF, as if the Adam Smith prescription of free market liberalism has taken its rebirth. Neoliberalism. Many scholars believe today that the recent financial crisis of the US and European nations and somehow borne out the ideas rooted in the consensus In the aftermath of the Great Recession after the US subprime crisis in the Western economies, it is believed that dependence on the market to correct the growth and the development may not sustain any longer, and the world might agree in favor of development state, in the case of East Asian nations, which never went to consensus. Okay, for their robust growth. Okay, the Keynesian idea of interventionist state seems the ultimate alternative in the present time, as it suggested by the US naval economist Paul Krugman and being followed by the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Okay, three arrows of Abenomics. Okay, sectors of an economy. Okay, sectors of an economy. Every economy tries to maximize the returns of economic activities in which it is involved, whatever be the organizing principle of an economy. Economic activities are broadly classified into three broad categories, okay, which are known as three sectors of the economy: private sector, and primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. Primary sector, it is primary sector. This sector includes all those economic activities where there is a direct use of natural resources like agriculture, forest, fishing, fuels, metals, minerals, etc. In some of the economists, mining activities are considered as part of the secondary sector. Mining with the secondary sector, though we see direct use of the natural resources here broadly, such economists term their agriculture sector as the primary sector. Thus, this is the case of India. Secondary sector. This sector is rightly called the manufacturing sector, which uses the produce of the primary sector. This sector is rightly called the manufacturing sector, which uses the produce of the primary sector as its raw material. Since manufacturing it does done by the industries. It is called manufacturing. It is produced with the primary sector, which uses the produce of the primary sector as its raw material. Since manufacturing is done by the industries, this sector is also called industrial sector. For example, these are production of breads and biscuits, cakes, automobiles, textile, etc. Tertiary, this sector all economic activities where different services are produced, such as education, banking, insurance, transportation, tourism, etc. This sector also known as service sector. Types of economics, depending upon the shares of the particular sector in the total production of the economy, and also dependent popularism on them for their developed economics are categorized as okay. Agrarian economy. Economic is called agrarian is if its share of the primary sector is 50% of the more than the total output of the GDP of the economy at the time of independence. India was such an economy, but nowadays it shows the symptoms of service economy, which with the primary sector contributing failing to almost 18% of its total produce, while almost 49% of the population depends on the primary sectors for the livelihood. Thus, the monopoly, the monetary terms, in monetary terms, India is no more an agrarian economy. India is no more an agrarian economy. Okay. However, the dependency ratio makes it so India being the first such example of the economic history of the world makes it so. Industrial economy. Okay. Industrial economy. Okay. It is agrarian economy. We discuss types of economy: agrarian, industrial economy, and service economy. Okay, industrial economy. If the secondary sector contributes 50% to its 50% of the or more to total produce value of an economy, it is an industrial economy. Mm. Economy higher in the country contribution, higher the level of the industrialization. Western economies which went to the early industrialization, Western economy, okay, the industrialization earning fast income and developing early are known as the developed economy. Okay, most of these economies have crossed thus this stage once the process called industrialization saturated. Service economy. Service economy. Any an economy where 50% or more of the produce value comes from the tertiary sector is known as service sector. First, lot of such economics in the world, where the early industrialization economy, the tertiary sector provides livelihood to the largest number of people in the economy. Such economy in the last decade, 2003 to 4 and 2012-13 growth has increasingly come from the service sector, in which contribution to our overall growth of the economy has been 65%, while of the industrial growth and agriculture sector have been 27%. 27% and 8% respectively. Industrial 27 and agriculture 8% respectively. By the contribution, you get service sector 65% contribute करते हैं, agriculture 8% and industrial sector 20% 27%. ये याद रखिए प्लीज. ओके, यहाँ पर कहीं भी क्वेश्चन में लिख पाएंगे आप. But by the end of the 19th century, it was well established. By the end of 19th century, it was well established facts, at least in the Western world, the industrial activities were the faster way to earn income in comparison to agrarian economy. Anyway, the Second World War had established the fact for the full world, and almost every world started their preparation for the process of industrialization. Country after country successfully industrialized, a pattern of population shift occurred from one to another sector of the economy, which was known as the stage of growth of an economy, which is with the intensification of industrialization, dependency on the primary sector of livelihood, increase in the dependency on the secondary sector, increase consistently. Similarly, with such economics, so a group population shift from the secondary to tertiary, and these were known as the post-industrial society or the service societies. Almost the whole America falls under this category. These economics are having over 50% of their total produce value contributed by the tertiary sector, and over half of the population depends on the sector for their livelihood. This economy having over 50% of their total produce value being contributed to by the tertiary sector, and over half of the population depends on this sector for their livelihood. Many other countries which started the process of industrialization in the post-war period did so aberration in the shift of the population and income, and income. India being one of them, among one among them. Okay, the idea of national income. Income is probably the most frequently used term in economics. It is used by the experts and laymen. Laymen. Income level is the most commonly used tool to determine the well-being and happiness of nations and their citizens. This remains true even today. Even if we look the if we know the income, it is not an exhaustive idea to know about the well-being of the society. There has been some reasons for such a perception about the concept of economic income. Basically, when the idea of human development came into being in the early 1990s, the concept of the Human Development Index ultimately was heavily dependent on the level of income of an individual of a country. In a country, education and life expectancy can only be enhanced once the required amount of investment expenditure of them could be mobilized. Thus, somehow, income come to be established. Okay, as the focal point of the human development, as income of as a single person can be measured if it can be measured for a nation and the whole world. Although the mention of the calculation accounting may be a little bit of complex in the latter case, is due course for ideas ways, okay, to calculate the income of a nation developed, which are the subject matter of national income according accounting. These four ways of to calculate the okay. These four ways to calculate the income of an economy. Okay, income of an economy, although different from each other in the ways, in some ways, add the concepts of GDP and NDP, GNP, NNP, or all are a form of the national income, but are different from one another. They are present a different story about the income of a nation and in their own specific ways. Here we will objectively discuss such one of them. Okay, GDP, gross domestic product, is a value of the all final goods and services produced within the boundary of a nation during over 1 year period. For India, this calendar year is from 1st April to 31st March. It is calculated by adding national private consumption. It is also calculated by adding national private consumption, gross investment, okay, government spending, and trade balance. Export ex, mm, the use of exports minus imports. The use of the export minus imports factor in removes expenditure on imports not produced in the nation and adds expenditure on goods and services, okay, produced which are exported but not sold within the country. ओके, सो थैंक यू फ्रेंड्स। इतना तक हमने डिस्कस कर लिया, तो नेक्स्ट चैप्टर में हम पूरी की पूरी डिस्कस